Solve the following system by graphing. To graph the first equation, I'm going to solve it for y. So to get the y term by itself, I'll subtract 8x from both sides. And I'm left with 2y equals negative 8x minus 16. To get the y by itself, I'll divide each term by 2. So y equals negative 4x minus 8. Now, I could use the point plotting method to graph that equation. That is, select values of x to substitute into the equation to find out what the corresponding value of y is. Or I could use the slope and y-intercept to graph the equation. I'm going to go with the slope and the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the constant, or the number that stands by itself. In this case, the y-intercept is negative 8. The actual point is when x is 0, y is negative 8. So on the y-axis, where x is 0, I'll go to y is negative 8. From that point, I'm going to follow the directions given by the slope, where a slope is the coefficient of the x term. So I'm going to write that as a fraction. I could write it as negative 4 over 1, in which case, from the y-intercept, I would go down 4, because it's negative, and right 1 because the denominator is positive. Well, if I chose that form of the slope, going down 4 would come off the grid that I was given. So let's write it another way. I could write that negative 4 as 4 over negative 1, in which case, since the numerator is positive, I would go up 4, and since the denominator is negative, I would go left 1. That's doable from the y-intercept. Up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, left 1. 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 Okay, so draw a line through those points. There's my graph. That is 8x plus 2y equals negative 16. Next, I need to graph x minus 2y equals negative 2. I'm going to solve that equation for y. So I'll subtract x from both sides. So I have negative 2y equals negative x minus 2. If I divide each term on all sides of the equation by a negative 2, I have y is equal to 1/2 x plus 1. Again, I'm going to use that slope and y-intercept to graph that equation. So the constant, or the number that stands by itself, is our y-intercept. So it's 1 on the positive 1 on the y-axis, or when x is 0, y is 1. Now our slope is the coefficient of our x term, so it's the 1/2. So if I write it that way, the numerator says go up 1, since it's positive. The denominator tells us to go to the right 2. Or I could write it as that 1/2 as a negative 1 over negative 2. That would be a positive 1/2, in which case the numerator, since it's negative, would go down 1, And the denominator, since it's negative, would go to the left 2. All right, so let's plot our y-intercept. So 0, 1, x is 0, y is 1. So I'm going to use the second form of the slope. Go down 1, left 2. Ah, there we go. Down 1, left 2. Down 1, left 2. There's our graph. This line represents the x minus 2y equals negative 2. And the point where they intersect, that's the solution to the system. So they intercept when x is negative 2, y is 0.